almost 2 years since Queen Elizabeth passed away in her beloved Balmoral.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's 2 years.
2 years tomorrow. Shocking, isn't it?
Really, it's just flown past.
Well, the Prime Minister's paid tribute to her enduring legacy of service and devotion to our country, saying, and quite rightly, she will never be forgotten.
No. He announced a new national memorial in her honour, which will stand in St James's Park.
Yeah, quite right too. Let's talk to Royal Correspondent for The Express, Richard Palmer, who's in Hampshire for us this morning. Good to see you, Richard. I mean, look, quite right that this is done. It has to be done.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I suspect there are parts of the royal household who were rather that we were focusing on the new monarch and his first 2 years on the throne and where he goes from here. But it's right, I think, that the nation remembers such a remarkable monarch, somebody who dominated the world stage for more than 70 years, really. So I think St James's Park is a fantastic location, close to the Mall, the ceremonial route, close to Buckingham Palace, close to memorials to her parents as well. And I'm sure it'll become a major tourist attraction as well in central London.
Richard, the one question always asked is we have this fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square. Why can't I get the park link, but why can't we have a statue of the late Queen there?
Well, I mean, perhaps that was considered, but I mean, I think they're saying that there may be other memorials in other parts of the UK, but can you have two in central London? For me, this is a perfect location, and I don't know what will happen with the fourth plinth in Trafalgar Square, but I don't think that there's going to be a statue of Queen Elizabeth there now.
No, well, to be fair though, it would only be one of four, wouldn't it?
Yes.
You know, so which I quite like the fact she's going to have something completely independent.
Yeah, but I mean, her dedication to duty, the amount of time she put into doing the job and doing it quite well.
Can we ask about... I'm intrigued by this, because it's in a lot of the papers this morning. So Ian McKellen talking about Queen Elizabeth, saying she was quite mad and rude.
Yes, it's really unusual. I mean, in fact, I can't really ever remember in 20 years of royal reporting coming across somebody who was willing to criticise the Queen in such an open way, somebody who'd actually met her. And been honoured by her. He seems to have been rude about everybody in this interview, rude about Prince Philip and Prince Harry as well, although he sort of said he's on the side of Prince Harry, but then goes on to say, well, he's probably too thick to do the job. I mean, there is outrage in some quarters of the national press this morning, and indeed, one royal commentator is suggesting that he ought to hand his honours back if he feels like that. I have to say, there's been a lot of talk about freedom of speech, the need for freedom of speech to be maintained in this country in the last couple of weeks. And so it does seem strange to be arguing on the one hand for freedom of speech and then saying nobody can criticise our late Queen. It doesn't ring true to me. I mean, it doesn't sound... I mean, when he describes her being rude and asking... His main reason seems to be that she said to him that, do people still go to the theatre? And he's taken offence at that. I suspect it was just a way of getting conversation going and talking about how theatre is adapting and still attracting crowds in the West End.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what he's saying seems to be unreasonable to me, but I would defend his right to say it. He is a national treasure, talking about another national treasure, isn't he?
So in the spirit of free speech, then, I will say that Ian McKellen is someone I've worked with, hosting events, and I have never in my life met anyone as rude and as arrogant as Ian McKellen. It was one of those don't meet your heroes things, because I came away from that night absolutely gutted that he was so rude.
What did he say to you?
Just generally unpleasant. I was really shocked. So the fact he's got the nerve to criticise anyone else, I find astounding.
It's also been rude about our Prince Harry, though, saying he isn't bright enough to survive royal life. But this comes as news that on Harry's 40th birthday, which I think is in a couple of weeks' time, he's set to inherit millions from his great-grandmother.
He's 40 on September the 15th, and I don't think this has been really confirmed on the record by palace sources or people in the family, but it's widely believed that he and other of the great-grandchildren, the Queen Mother's great-grandchildren, are going to inherit pretty large sums of money. I think he inherited a sum from her when he was 21, and then there was a second tranche when he was due to be 40. He's... There's going to be a lot of focus on him in the next few days, I suspect. We don't go very long without talking about him these days, do we? But Sir Ian's views on Harry may chime more with quite a few people in the British public. If you look at the polls, which continually seem to show that Harry's not very popular.
No, isn't that true? Richard, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it. I tell you, in terms of, let's say on the positive, this memorial, I mean, I presume it's going to be a statue of Her Majesty the Queen, maybe a big one. But have you been to the one in Oakham? It was the first one that was, honestly...
Along with the corgis.
Along with the corgis, it's fantastic.
You know what,
really lovely. We stumbled across it a few weeks ago when we were up there, and it was just such a thrill to see. It's in Oakham.
Where's that?
It's like in sort of... towards the Midlands.
Oh, right,
Where are we heading to? Is it Leicestershire? Can't think where we were going for the day, and we just came across it. It's just fantastic.
And it's a traditional statue of the Queen looking like the Queen with the corgis playing around the plinth as well. That's lovely. I just hope this statue is traditional, none of that modern fancy stuff where it's like two triangles stuck on a square and it's like you go, oh yeah, that's the Queen.
No, they've got to do a traditional.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. I think we should have one in Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Why we can't have it.
Some of the stuff we put on that plinth in Trafalgar Square. I mean, what? I mean,
no, I agree. I tell you what, I would like to see though, because this one and a lot of them are the Queen in her heyday.
Yes.
She was absolutely stunning. I would like to see one of the Queen. You remember that last sort of picture we saw of her? And looking very frail, but with that smile. And I'd like to see the Queen as we last saw her. You know, this sort of older but dignified lady who was still leading her country. Yeah. I think I'd like to see that.
You know what? I mean, I can't believe it's 2 years. I really can't. And I was surprised at how sad I felt when we lost her, because I'm not particularly a royalist. But I just think... the dedication to duty, I know you can say, oh, well, it's not hard work, is it, kind of your ribbons, but I think that, you know, the dedication to duty, and it is a hard job. I mean, you're literally in a prison. You can't just go and think, right, I'm just going to nip down to the local theatre, as Sir Ian McKellen would have her do, you know, because you're the Queen. You can't do anything or say anything untoward. You've got to be nice to everybody all the time.
And it's, you know, you never get to retire.
No.
Do you? You never
die
get to
on
retire.
the job.
So there you go. I think... you know, all for celebrating her. Shocking what Ian McKellen
What do you
said,
think?
Frankly. Now, it's 2 years tomorrow since Queen Elizabeth passed away in Balmoral.
I really can't believe that. The Prime Minister has paid tribute to the late monarch's enduring legacy of service and devotion to our country, saying she will never be forgotten.
Yeah, there's going to be a new national memorial in her honour. It's going to stand in St James's Park. I hope it's just a blooming great statue. Actually, we don't get enough traditional statues now.
Can we just have, the one you mentioned, which was in blah, blah, blah.
In Oakham.
Yes, exactly,
Rutland.
in Rutland, yeah. That was lovely. That was the Queen looking at the Queen with the corgis on the plinth.
Just really nice, respectful,
I don't want
beautiful.
A triangle with a circle on it saying, this is the Queen. It's not. Yeah. Shall we find out what journalist at The Spectator and Daily Telegraph, journalist Alex Larman has to say on this one? Thank you for joining us, Alex. So this is good. It's going to be a lovely statue. It's about time. Is it in the right place, though?
Well, I mean, I think that the Queen's been overdue a statue because obviously she's so beloved and so held in such high estimation by the people. But obviously, 2 years after her death, it's all about finding the right place for it and doing it in the right way. And I think that, as you say, what we don't want is some sort of abstract thing, which is just ridiculous, because that's not what anybody wants. That's not a tribute to her. And I mean, the one in Rutland isn't bad, actually, because, OK, that's not going to be the full formal thing. But I think there's a lot of potential for it to go wrong because it depends who's involved in picking it, where it's going to go, and how it's going to be done. And I think it's going to be absolutely essential. But it conveys every aspect of her, and that's hard in a statue because, you know, you look at the famous statue of Churchill in the Cenotaph, and that's a really good example of who he was. And you look at that and you think that is Winston Churchill, that is a fitting legacy of him. So with this, it's going to be very difficult because obviously, what age of the Queen do you portray? Do you portray the young Queen, the person who came to the throne unprepared on the death of her father and changed the monarchy? Do you present the middle-aged Queen, the person who was going through, you know, unimaginable turmoil in Britain? Or do you portray the older Queen? And so that's a hard decision that someone's going to have to make.
But actually, Alex, I think that's an easy decision. I think you go for the older Queen, because this is commemorating her reign and the full length of it, and that gives you an opportunity to have that twinkle in the eye and that image of her that we've come to know and love over recent years.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I think about the Queen, it's always with the twinkle in her eye. It's the first thing I think about.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I mean, that's what, you know, she is so much missed because you look at the 2 years since she died, they have not been great years for the royal family. There's been illness, there's been a sense of slight chaos, I think, especially in the last few months, a sort of drift away from what these things should be. And I think that when you look back on her extraordinarily long, extraordinarily distinguished reign, as an example of that's what should have been. That's the person who ultimately was the greatest monarch in this country's history.
Alex,
and that's something that we...
sorry, Alex. I'm so glad you said that because you literally took that thought right out of my mind. Lots of people are saying that. Since we lost the Queen, everything seems to have gone a bit wrong.
Well, I mean, she managed the firm, and I think that's the best way of looking at it. But she and the Duke of Edinburgh, who I think has often been an underrated figure, because we talk about Prince Philip as somebody who had his gaffes and his casual bits of racism and so forth. But actually, underneath that exterior, he was a very sharp, very persistent man who really knew what the royal family needed to do. And so, yes, I think you're right. I think that in the last, especially this year, there has been this sense of drift because I'll give you an example of why the Queen was so much better at this than anyone in the current administration. When Harry and Meghan were going on television and saying they'd been mistreated, blah, 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 recollections may vary was such a brilliant and such a damning line. But immediately it undercut everything they said. And you haven't got anything like that now. The King is not capable or not willing to go studs in the way that you need to on that disagreeable pair. And the fact is that since she died, there is a real sense that the royal family has not been at its A game, and I don't know if it's ever going to recover it now.
Well, look, I mean, you have great admiration for Queen Elizabeth, as most of us do. What then do you make of what Sir Ian McKellen's been saying?
Well, it's been fascinating because I don't understand why Ian McKellen, who's being interviewed about his new film, decided that he wanted to offer an opinion about the Queen, because he's very much an establishment figure, whether he likes it or not. He is a companion of honour, he's a knight, he's one of our leading actors. And he gave this interview to the Times, and it was quite extraordinary, actually, because he laid into the Queen and he said that she was basically insane by the end. You're thinking, she may have been many things, but she was not insane. And I think that she was absolutely focused, I mean, right up to the end. You see that picture of her greeting Liz Truss. That's a woman who's very much somebody who is on her A game. But yeah, I mean, Ian McKellen has a right to his own opinions, but I don't think I would agree with them.
Alex, just one final question. We're running out of time. Just quickly, there has been lots of talk about Harry trying to get back into the royal fold, come back to this country. Been denied, obviously. But lots of people, including viewers this morning, are saying, I'd never have Harry back because of what he put his grandmother through in her final years. Do you understand that sentiment?
I mean, I don't think people want Harry back full stop. I mean, I don't think there's any need for this country to have Prince Harry back in it. I mean, he's behaved so disgracefully and so appallingly. Not just, essentially, you could argue that he's been manipulated by his wife. You could argue that he's essentially just a poor little lost boy who's found a far more confident and far more intelligent woman who's taken charge. This might very well be true. But yes, I think he has caused his entire family stress and misery. And I think that you look at the Queen and you look at the fact that she was obviously in her final years unable to have the peace that she needed. But I mean, you look at Harry now and you just think, okay, he has made his bed in Montecito and he can lie in it. And I don't think anybody would want him to be coming back to the royal family, because all that's going to do is to cause yet more chaos, yet more discord, and yet more difficulty.